our discussion this morning, we are actually discussing My Land is Kenya. It's all the spirit of, in the spirit of patriotism, cohesion, where we began. And Muduma was actually raising a very pivotal point regarding that's a place where we are together, the collectedness or the collectivity that we normally speak about as a country. But there was one poignant, of course, opportunity we had as a country to be together when we had the promulgation of the Constitution. And that was in August the 27th of 2010. We saw Kenyans, you know, of every stripe going to Uhuru Park, and there was such a very ephemeral feeling that we had in the air about our country then. Has that fleeted away? Where are we as a country, right? I just want to take you back a bit so that you can actually relive that moment. I don't know where you are, but you can actually listen into this.
Only got one mama, you only got one pa, you only got one life to live, no matter who you are. You can go the whole world over, every city has its dawn, but everybody living has one place where he was born. Mine is Kenya, so warm and wild and free. You'll always stay with me here in my heart. My land is Kenya, right from your highlands to the sea. You'll always stay with me here in my heart, here in my heart. Only got one child, and the memory that springs when you see your house, the tree you climbed, and all those precious things. The faces of the friends I had, the images that form. When I close my eyes in the land I love, the land where I was born. My land is Kenya, so warm and wild and free. You'll always stay with me here in my heart. My land is Kenya, right from your highlands to the sea. You'll always stay with me
Indeed, my life is Kenya. And of course, that piece just goes to show the ephemerality of life. Many people that you've seen also in that clip, most of them have passed on as well. But that was a very engaging moment as a country where we cohered as a country because of the new constitution that we are promulgating. Everyone was feeling there's a new lease of life that has come, and to Kenya, we've actually gotten a new injection into our veins, and we have vibrancy as a country. But has that tapered away, right, since we promulgated the constitution? A lot has been happening as far as the political landscape is concerned. We want to hear from our panelists this morning just to tell us, is our land still Kenya? Of course, naturally, we are born to be Kenyans, and that will never be taken away. But are we patriotic? Do we feel that we are fully engaged? Is some sector and parts of this country still feeling marginalized? They feel like they are the other Kenya. We have on the lectern right now Gabriel Muduma, who's going to tell us how he feels about Kenya right now. And Gabriel, you've got 5 minutes beginning now.
Debal, well, thank you. And to our viewers today, Debal, we've just had a very interesting and a nice song from Roger Whittaker. And I would like to believe he meant the words of that song. They are actually very daring. But there are other songs that have been sung about this great nation. Mm-hmm. One, I can actually imagine, I can read it to you. The first stanza that was sung by our local musician, one Eric Wainaina. And this is what he says. Mm-hmm. And most of you who are watching this today, if after doing this, you need to go and read this first stanza of what Eric Wainaina said. He said, our glory lies in unity, our strength in our accord, hatred and disparity we cannot afford. Our task is incomplete if our souls and minds don't meet. If there's one in our multitude who does not share our altitude. Those were the great words that were penned down on the song called Kenya Only by Eric Wainaina. And today, as we speak about my land is Kenya, the question we should be asking, or the question that I should ask or pose is, what kind of Kenya? The one thing, Debal, that you've put forward today for us, and the one thing that I'm liking actually this subject, is because it talks about a nation, it talks about a country. This country that we all have called Kenya. For sure, we are not where we used to be, but I can also guarantee you, we have strides and places that we can take this country. So to me, if I was asked, how or what kind of Kenya would you want to see? My Kenya would look like this. A Kenya where every citizen is proud of. Most and many a times, we talk and complain about what is not working in this country. But rarely do we remember or remind ourselves and our children where we have come from. For sure, we are not where we used to be. I'm reminded by my uncles and my grandfathers of what it used to be, how long it used to take for them to travel. A journey that could take a day, nowadays, actually, in our current moment, it takes hours. That is a stride in the right direction. So the Kenya that we build must be built on three commitments: the what, the how, and the when. This is a conversation that we must have to realize a Kenya that we all want. And for those things to happen, one word must be key, and that's accountability. And this accountability, when we talk about it, it's not only in our leaders, but also in us, even in the way we select our leaders. When we sit down, something must precede the excitement that we have, and that is education. But it's not the kind of education that we all know. It's an education that we learn from one Albert Einstein, who told us that education is the ability of the human mind to think. So we must look at our society, we must question it, and we must observe it deeply to understand the solutions that lie within and know which of those solutions that we must embrace as a matter of supreme urgency and importance. That is how we will arrive to the Kenya that we want. The other thing that must come to play is a social responsibility. And this is something that we keep running away from. The social responsibility is what tells me what kind of politician that I need to put in place. One that I will not only hold to account, but one that I will constantly gauge and look at his content and attitude. For us to realize this, we must not be voting using the kind of mannerisms that we've always done, tribalism. So this is something that we must kick out. Yes, I know we are a nation of many tribes, and sometimes that comes in our back burner. But I believe anytime we go to the voting booth and you're reminded that you have to vote for your tribesman or your tribeswoman, you've already gotten it wrong. So here we have an opportunity to bring about a nation where the leadership that we bring is not outsourced. And actually, we do not outsource leadership. We get it from within ourselves. We must then raise the bar to hold people on the virtue of content, not the acclamation of the majority. We've always gotten it wrong when we move that on that pedestal. And to finalize, a great man once said that the tranquility of a nation is based upon the premise of a very simple truth, that nothing is important in a democracy like an informed electorate. Keyword, informed. Let us be informed. If we are informed, we are going to build the Kenya that we want. And then we are going to live out to the true meaning of what Eric Wainaina said and what Roger Whittaker has sung. My land is Kenya, from the highlands to the sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel Huduma, political commentator. Of course, spoken very movingly there about my land is Kenya. Nothing is important in democracy, right, like an informed electorate. Are we truly informed? How civilized are we when it comes to elections as well? Do we also show up our innate, of course, animosity that is still there that we need to deal with when it comes to issues of tribal enclaves as well, right? The what, the how, and the why, those are the comic terms that we need also to look into when we are looking broadly on our political spectrum as well. Education, quoting Albert Einstein, is the ability of the human mind to think. Right, we want to also welcome on the lectern right now Baraka Maluca, who is actually near there. So Baraka, also, you'll head over now to the lectern and speak to us. What is your idea of my land, my Kenya? How patriotic are you? Are you happy with the current state of play as far as, you know, the running of this country, the leadership of the country is concerned as well? Barak, you got 5 minutes as well.
Thank you, Debal. I thought that I would come last.
Every one of you wants to come last.
On account of the fact that I'm an elder. So I should allow the younger persons to have a go first, because after the elder has spoken, what is left to be said?
Yeah.
I
Protocol demands the elder to speak last.
have been in this country since before independence. Mm-hmm. I was born during the yoke of colonialism. I grew up under Jomo Kenyatta. I matured under President Daniel Arap Moi. I started getting into my sunset under Mwai Kibaki, under whom I mellowed. And now I age gracefully under Uhuru Kenyatta. And so I can tell you the story of my country because I've been there. I have witnessed it. I've seen many false dawns that have not matured into mornings of fulfillment. I was a boy a few months away from primary school. I belonged to the first class 1 of independent Kenya in 1964. I have seen my first president go to the great beyond. I've seen my second president retire, and Kenyans say, yote yawezekana bila Moi. I have seen the constitutional moment that raised lots of hopes. I have even seen some Kenyans revel in the streets of Nairobi and elsewhere in the wake of an attempted coup. I've been there and I've seen it all. But critically, Kenya is my country. It's the place where providence and nature, in their wide-ranging wisdom, elected that I should be planted. And so it's the only country and the only home that I have, and the only place that I must hope for. And many times people like myself have written and spoken, and sometimes critically. And some have said, why are you always critical? And we have said, if there's a fire in the kitchen is burning, And we have seen that cartoon there. Should you lie comfortably in your bedroom and continue dreaming when the kitchen is burning and you say it is safe here? So this is our country. It is the place to be. It is the place to continue hoping for. Certainly, we make certain baby steps, one step forward. Sometimes we make another step backwards. And we need to ask ourselves, what is it about the country that we love? If you can't love this country, you can't love any other country. Because anywhere you go, you are a foreigner, you are an exile, you are a refugee. And you can ask those who live even here as foreigners, as refugees, as exiles, whether they would not be happy around. So if Providence and nature in their wide-ranging wisdom have elected that this is the place for me to be, what business do I have trying to seek comfort in other places that have taken other people's efforts to make comfortable? Every so often something goes wrong in my country. I hear people say we need to make the laws again. And I think that that is one area where we have already excelled. 2010, 9 years ago, we boasted of the most progressive constitution in the world. Is it possible that each time something goes wrong, we need more laws? Do we need to ask ourselves whether the laws that we have are obeyed? Do we need to ask ourselves whether the laws apply equally across the board? We have got one of the best provisions on civil liberties in the 6th chapter of our Constitution, one of the best provisions on leadership principles, values, and etiquette. Is it observed? If it is not observed, what is the problem? Will the making of more new laws make us better people? Can we prefecture conduct? I think that the one thing that is missing in my good country, my good Kenya, is the ability to make people respect their conscience or have conscience. The ability to punish people not by sending them to prison, but by isolating them, by shaming them, by making them feel uncomfortable. Because the ultimate punishment, as a great philosopher, writer, and thinker called Fyodor Dostoevsky taught us in 1866 in a volume titled Crime and Punishment, is the punishment that is visited upon the offender by his conscience. That's what we need to bring home in my country, Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Baraka. Right. Baraka asks very poignant questions here. Right. Have you experienced false dawns that have not really matured into mornings of fulfillment in this country? Right. Is there fire in the kitchen? Right. Is there fire in the Kenyan kitchen? And if you can't love this country, you won't love any other country, because Providence and nature have elected that this is a place you should be, right? Will the making of the new laws also make us better Kenyans, right? And can we really prefecture conduct? Right? I think this a good pause givers for us to think about this morning. Right, we want to welcome right now Hamid Hassan also to walk over to the lectern to talk to us and tell us what he thinks about his land, which is Kenya. Where are we at, where are we headed, where are we from, and what is the future of his country as far as leadership is concerned. Hamid, he is a governance and policy expert. Hamid, you've got 5 minutes beginning now.
Well, it's a tough thing to speak after my elder. An articulate man like Baraka Maluca, who once called me in an editorial page the most dangerous man in Kenya. He's found out that I'm not the most dangerous man in Kenya.
You're a good man.
Debal, I'm reminded of an old quip from an old farmer who said that the government of the people, by the people, and of the people shall not perish from the face of the earth. I'm always guided by this because at the end of the day, it is the people who live on the land that matter. From the vantage point of Roger Whittaker, the land is quite beautiful. When you're at a cottage in Samburu Hills and you have enough to eat, Kenya is very beautiful. But if you woke up this morning as I did to come here, Debal, and do a civic duty, you could see at 5 o'clock in the morning that our citizens were up, walking, most of them, without a transportation system, walking to jobs that give them $1 a day, probably woke up without any breakfast. It is a testament, Debal, that in this country, 50 years after independence, instead of us celebrating that our institutions are working, that we have a healthcare system, and that we have a proper educational system, and jobs for the people of this country, we are in a doldrum economically. Politically, we're yet to find a vision, and culturally, we just don't care. I'm sorry that my words are bleak, but it is important to stand up and testify on behalf of the ordinary Kenyan, man and woman, who constitute the march of history in this country. And if we speak to an elite or speak to a middle class and not speak to the 85% of the people in this country whose earnings are $1 a day, we shouldn't be here and we shouldn't have any kind of civic duty to perform. Debal, yesterday, as you know, we were at the United Kenya Club to listen to one of the most distinguished diplomats who was on our show last Wednesday. And while I was sitting there, a woman, and this is from the middle class of Kenya, told me that she probably thinks we're going to have a revolution in this country. Today, as I was driving here, the taxi driver asked me to say something in favor of the people of this country. I probably believe that we will not have a revolution and that we will have a fundamental transition. And I think a fundamental transition includes two things. That we have, the leaders we have today, to help build a bridge so that the next generation, in maybe 5 to 10 years, can start putting a new foundation of economic empowerment, if we do put the constitutional empowerment that we need today. And we probably need that vision, that these men who lead this country need to start giving us a vision so that this fundamental transition can happen. We're not going to be able to eat the Constitution. We're going to have to eat 3 square meals a day. And the Constitution does not provide that. There are jobs that provide that. It's healthcare that provides that. It is all the fundamental economic reasons that provide that, Debal. And I believe that the government of the people and by the people and for the people has this vision so that we may live dignified lives in this country, in this century, and hope that our children can bequeath the things that we build today to their own children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, Hamid Hassan there, also giving his sentiments about the land called Kenya, right? Is democracy, of course, which is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. He says, this we know shall not perish from the face of the earth, we the people. And that is also the preamble from the constitution that we have and we promulgated. And you saw that particular, of course, that particular music by Roger Whittaker, and how we had that the spirit of collegiality as a country at Uhuru Park that particular day when we were promulgating this particular constitution. But has that enthusiasm tapered off? Has it just gone down the tubes? Since, of course, a lot has been happening as far as the political scene is concerned. Right now, we're gagging for a new referendum as well. Do we really need it? That is a question that we should be asking ourselves. Do we really need it to tinker with the law again so that we can have a new spirit and enthusiasm and a new brand Kenya? Is it the way to really go, right? Will it make us better? That is what we are being asked this morning. We cannot prefecture, of course, conduct. And that is what we want to probe. When we circle back, of course, we shall hear from Hamid Manyora as well to also tell us more of what he thinks about this land of Kenya. Your land is Kenya, my land is Kenya. We take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with the program.
You and my fellow panelists and those watching us. Speaking about which way forward, in my understanding, we'll be talking about future. Now, future could be a few meters ahead. Your future could be tomorrow. It could be a week, a year. It could be 10 years. It could be 50 years. And this, to me, means talking about future is talking about some kind of vision when it comes to a country. So you want to ask yourself, what did the future mean to Lenin of Russia? Okay? What did the future mean to somebody like Fidel Castro, who turned a slave island into a modern economy with the highest possible rates of literacy in the world? What would the future mean to Donald Trump of America? Where does he want to see America? And you can go on. And perhaps before you stopped, you would have talked about Fidel Castro and his brother, Gaddafi. The future he had in mind was his vision for Libya. So about future, in my understanding, Baraka and I may have very little to talk about future. In my limited understanding of things, future is about my children and my grandchildren. And therefore, if future is about my grandchildren and my children, then I am concerned with whether they will be healthy tomorrow. Because if there's no provision of health, then the children will not live into any future. Right? And therefore, if you are talking about which way forward for any country, you are looking at whether that country is able to provide for health. So when I look at my country, I ask myself, are we doing that? The answer is definitely no. Despite our leaders singing to us and telling us that we are going to move forward in this respect, and they come up with all sorts of things, universal health coverage, Kenyans are still dying in their thousands. Families are having to sell property, perhaps the only piece of land they have. And with cancer now ravaging even the poorest of the poor, the situation is getting worse. So I don't see future for my children and my grandchildren. Future for the children means education. Today, as we sit here and talk, I hear there's a big meeting, a one day or so meeting to decide the future of this country, the future of the children in terms of education. The story from the leaders is full of lies, and therefore it does not help to safeguard the future of my grandchildren and my children. Future for the children means you need to provide for them health, education, and all the good things we have talked about, including shelter. What I see around me does not give me hope. And therefore, future is about vision. And a vision for this country will be a vision that will bring happiness to the people of Kenya. As you grow up, you are happy because you know your child has a future. That makes you happy. And the child grows into happiness because that child has a future. That state is compromised badly in this country. That happiness will be there if people have a shilling in their pocket. That is not going to happen, and it's not happening because the thieves are taking all the shillings. If you walk in the streets of Nairobi, the kind of poverty you see tells you that there's something terribly wrong about this country. There's no happiness. If you go in the village, now it's even worse. That happiness will also come if Kenyans believe they have a sense of belonging, that this is their country. It begins with you knowing if you cast a vote to determine who leads you, that vote counts. And therefore, we are talking about an electoral system that has inbuilt justice, which we have been lacking for a long time in this country. Happiness will also mean you give hope to the children of this country. Hope is like a candle. If you dim that candle, if you put off a candle meant to provide hope for the children of this country, then there can be no future. There can be no hope. I'm disappointed that the middle class that should provide this hope is living in with false hope. They're riding on a bubble that is busting. They live in denial. The young men in this country who should be counting on also have not impressed me, because young people Dubai in this country are doing three things: gambling, pornography, and the Premier League. I want to ask young people in this country to wake up. The future does not belong to Manyora and Baraka Maluca. The future belongs to Gabriel Muduma here and his younger brothers. They cannot spend all their time on Premier League as foreigners ravage this country. By the time they get to my age, they may have no country. So let them wake up. There is plenty in this country. We can move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.